Hey, welcome to the channel, More Dirt, More Distance. I really enjoy going camping during the summer, and some of the greatest spots are at higher elevations, maybe 10,000 feet. And no matter what time of year it is, it's going to be cold up there at night. And I'm tired of just trying to bundle up in sleeping bags and blankets and sweats. So I've decided to try one of these diesel heaters. They are meant for RVs and vehicles, but I've been seeing that people have been using them camping. And now I've read the reviews and they can be hit and miss on the overall quality of them as whether or not it's going to work. So I'm curious to see how well it's going to perform. That's why I'm gonna get it set up and make sure it's working. So if I do have any problems, I have plenty of time to return it and hopefully get my money back. So I just wanted to walk through the setup of the diesel heater, and we're gonna try it up camping and see how it does. This is the 8 kilowatt diesel air heater. It is 14 by 5 inches tall, 5.9 inches wide, and 14 by 8 inches long. On the top is the 5-liter fuel tank, or 1.32 gallons. On the left is the fuel pump, and below it is the actual diesel heater. On the front we have a remote and the LCD screen. It doesn't come with a 12-volt cigarette plug, so I had to wire that myself. The unit comes with a variety of hardware, but this is all that I'll need. I bought a 12-volt cigarette plug on Amazon. The air intake goes into the port on the left, and the exhaust goes into the port on the right. The provided adjustable clamps are used to secure the air intake hose and the exhaust pipe. The side panel needs to be unclipped in order to tighten the clamp with a screwdriver. After tightening the hose, slide the other end through the opening on the left. Take the exhaust pipe, attach it to the other port, and secure using the adjustable clamps. To attach the cigarette lighter plug, take the wire stripper and strip away a small portion of the top of the red and black wires. Slide the heat shrink over the wire before using the butt connector. Use a 16-14 gauge butt connector to connect the cigarette plug to the unit. Use the heat gun to shrink the connector. Slide the heat shrink tube over the connection and apply heat. The connection is secure. Now let's get some power and see if it's working. We've got power, so let's put some fuel in this thing and test it out. Before turning on the heater, the system needs to be primed. Press and hold the down arrow key, then hold the settings key simultaneously to enter manual mode. You should hear the tick of the fuel pump and see fuel begin to be pulled through the line. The heater is ready to go once all the air has been pushed out of the fuel line. I just did a rough setup to test out the heater. I don't recommend having the exhaust point in the same direction as the air outlet or the air inlet. Time to test it out. When you turn on the unit, you'll hear the fan turn on followed by the fuel pump. They both speed up and you'll eventually hear the fuel ignite. There's a little bit of white smoke, but that stopped as soon as the unit got going. It's blowing out hot air, and I don't see any error codes. Let's see how it does up in the mountains. I got it all set up, but all it would do was blow thick white smoke. When I was doing my research, people were saying the heater can have problems igniting at high altitudes. So I tried turning up the heat setting, and that worked. The white smoke stopped. In the middle of the night, I got an error code that the unit was overheating, and I couldn't figure out why. And then I remember people saying the airflow is very important, so I extended out the hose and got rid of any turns and made it as straight as possible, and I never had that code again, and I'll just have to go back and trim down the length of the vent hose. I was curious how much fuel it would use. There's about 1/3 of a tank left here, and that's after being used for 2 nights, running about 9 to 10 hours a night. The heater did a good job. In fact, there was a couple of times where I got a little too warm. What I found worked the best is when you first turn on the heater, set it to a medium-high setting, and that way the heater can burn off any excess buildup it may have on it, and it really gets the tent nice and warm. And then you drop the heater down to the lowest level, leave it at that for the entire night, and I was really comfortable, so it worked really well. But there are a few things that you have to be aware of. One is that the exhaust gets really hot, like burn yourself hot. So if you have kids or a dog, that is something you want to take into consideration. The vent hose that goes in the tent, that also can get on the warm side, not hot enough to burn, but it can definitely get hot, especially the closer it is to the heat unit. It is really loud when it's starting up. The fan kicks on kind of slow and quiet, but then it builds up, and when it's going full blast, when it's trying to first ignite, it is really loud. And the fuel pump is really pushing hard, so you're really getting that ticking sound. But once it gets up to speed, it does quiet down quite a bit, but there is that constant ticking from the fuel pump that you will hear. If you're a person that's bothered by that kind of sounds, that's something to be aware of. The last thing is that the manual is horrible. It's hard to understand, and I still haven't got all the settings figured out on the diesel heater. Maybe after getting more experience with it, I'll do another video as far as all the different setups and buttons and what they do, but it is not an easy thing to read. I was able to do the basic things: turn it off, turn it on, prime it, and change the temperature. Outside of that, I'm still trying to figure things out. I didn't have any issues with it draining my battery. It draws the most power when it's first turning on, and then after that is pretty constant and doesn't require much power at all. I am still concerned about the overall reliability of the unit, because I did get that error code related to the overheating, and it was just turning out white smoke for quite a while there until I really kicked up, the temperature. So every night I was not 100% sure if it was really going to operate the way I wanted it to through the entire night. Even with those concerns, for at least the 2 nights that I took it out and tested it, it made the nights so much more enjoyable. It was so good to not be freezing in the tent, and especially in the morning, the tent is nice and warm before we have to get out there in that cold mountain air. Now, as far as what I recommend to someone else, I know there are the propane tent heaters, and those always concern me because I know there's safety features to keep them from burning the tent down, but it just makes me nervous to have that in the tent. And the diesel heater, you avoid those issues because you just have that hose going in and all this is pumping in hot, dry air. The unit itself is outside the tent, and it was never hot to the touch. The only part that was hot, like I said, was the exhaust. So I made sure, to put that, some rocks around it and put it in a place where people shouldn't be walking around it to try to mitigate some of the risk of that. But it just feels like it's a lot safer way to keep the tent comfortable as opposed to those propane tent heaters. So just on that alone, I would tell somebody, it might be worth a try. And there's a ton of videos on YouTube where people take these units, because I bought the complete unit, but you can also buy it in a kit that doesn't have the housing, and you can go ahead and find YouTube videos where they put it into different boxes that are more portable or waterproof to fit your particular needs. And I might consider something like that down the line, but for now, it did a good job just how it is. So if you found this video helpful, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss my next review.